No. No. Mm-mm. Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols, and I'm here to bring you a little bit of a different type of Nicholsworth. Today we're going to be talking about the ESV 2025. The updates have finally been completed, and now I'm going to have to be answering the annoying question of, is this edition the 2025 update? And my answer is going to be this a lot. No. It's going to take a long time starting this spring, moving into 2026, before all the new printings are going to be the 2025 update. So now that means that every ESV imprint that you're buying right now is already considered outdated by the translation committee. And I know that's going to be frustrating for a lot of people, and you're going to be asking, is this the 2025 update? No. Yeah. So here we are. I don't know when it's going to be updated online. I don't know when it's going to be updated in some of our church software programs so that when we're displaying it on the screen. And y'all, it's going to be kind of frustrating for some of you that want to have the latest updates. Also, for those of you that have the ESV Study Bible and your favorite layout and some of these different editions, yes, they are all going to be the 2016 or before update. So, let's answer the burning question, what has been changed? So let's go ahead and take a look at what I would consider some of the most important updates to the ESV 2025. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of these updates. We're not going to go through all of them because there are a total of 68 word changes involving 42 verses and 36 contextual passages. So we're not talking a big change here, but a few of them I would consider significant. Also, another thing to keep in mind, we haven't seen these yet, but there is going to be a change made to 57 of the footnotes. There's also some punctuation changes that affect 14 verses, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at what I would consider some of the most significant translation updates. Now, right away, you're going to notice in Genesis chapter 3, verse 16 and Genesis 4:7, where it says, your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you, has been changed to the more popular, your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Now, I have to admit, I'm a bit conflicted over this one. A lot of the more traditional translations do translate it, and your desire shall be for your husband, in more of the supportive or dependent view. And this could imply like a natural longing for companionship, affection, or a tendency to rely on the husband. And that is definitely a more complementarian view, but you have to understand, this is according to the fall. So Eve's position may be related to that, so I actually don't have a problem with contrary to. It does seem that the Hebrew word here could sort of go either way. And when we look at Genesis 4:7 in this, when it says that sin desires to have you, its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it, that's the same word, and it seems to fit contextually for, but really both work. This is really a confusing passage. It's desirous for you, so sin could be trying to latch onto you, or sin could be more of an enemy or a rivalry. So the question in Genesis 3:16 is, does Eve see Adam as more of a rival, or does she see him as a companion that she relies on? It really depends on your point of view. And what's really interesting about this text, the ESV Translation Committee has gone back and forth on this with each update. So this is really a return back to the 2001. So if they would have left this one alone, then this update would have been completely unnecessary. Some of the other changes are sort of non-consequential. Now, in Exodus 20 verse 11 and Exodus 31:17 and a few other passages where they have changed the term heaven and earth to the heavens and the earth, I actually like that change. I think that really brings more clarity to the fact that there is more than just heaven where God dwells. Paul said, I was called up into the third heaven. So obviously there's more than one level of the heavens. Also, in Psalm 115:16, it says, heaven, even the heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth he has given to the sons of men. So this is a change I actually really like. Now taking a look at a couple of others, there are some that are not as significant as others, obviously. Now this is an update that I actually am not too fond of, but it's not real important when it comes to the reading. But whenever you see all upper cases in the name Lord, you know that that is when they use the divine name. And a lot of times what Jews would do is they would substitute the vowels for Adonai into the YHWH, also known as the divine name or the tetragrammaton. And in this instance, that's how they came up with the term Yahweh or Jehovah, is by using those vowels in order to substitute it for Adonai. So whenever, for example, there was a time they would say Yahweh Adonai or the divine name Adonai, they would uppercase the word Lord or God in order to let you know that the divine name is being used. But they would say Lord God instead of Lord, Lord, because Adonai means Lord. But this isn't the case in one of those. This is actually the divine name plus Elohim. And Elohim is always translated God. So we can go ahead and keep the divine name in those all upper caps using the word Lord, and then keeping God with the capital G and the lowercase od. So I don't get this one. It's not necessary in my mind, but at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. As long as it's clear that the divine name is being used, then really this is kind of a non-issue, but it's something I thought I would point out because it's a little bit of a strange thing. Another really significant change is happy are your wives in 2 Chronicles 9:7, and they go back to, as they did in previous updates, happy are your men. And this is a strange little textual variant here. It seems there are some manuscripts in the Septuagint and the Vulgate that use the word wives, but it seems the majority of text, even some of the Septuagint and Vulgate, use happy are your men. So this is kind of a going back to the more traditional rendering that appears in most of your traditional translations. I like this change, but again, this is one of those changes that wouldn't have been necessary if they'd quit monkeying with the text and going back and forth on these variants. Stick with something. A couple other significant ones, Psalm 115, 159, it says, consider how I love your precepts. And then in the update, it says, consider how I love your precepts, give me life, O Lord. And this seems to be more of a lean toward the Masoretic text, which I think is an important thing here. Some of the rest of the changes are just word order changes or modernizing it to where it would be a little more understood. There's a couple of them I just feel like make absolutely no sense. But John 1:18, this is another one that I think is pretty important. John 1:18 says, no one has ever seen God, the only God. In the 2016 update, in the 2025 update, they make a very interesting decision. It says, no one has ever seen God, God the only Son who is at the Father's side. Now, one reason I do like this is because it does bring emphasis to the deity of Jesus, calling him God the only Son. What's really interesting about this is it's even stronger language of the divinity of Jesus than even the Textus Receptus, which is translated in the King James and the New King James. No one's ever seen God, the only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father. So really interesting change here. I don't know enough about Greek to really be able to speak to this. I trust the translation committees here. I like the rendering from a Trinitarian standpoint because it's so clear, but I really can't speak with authority as to whether this is right or not. But it is definitely more clear than the Textus Receptus. So those that are saying that the critical apparatus is trying to take away from the deity of Jesus, this verse really kind of flies in the face of that and shows that that's actually not the case, because it speaks very clearly of the deity of Jesus. Now, I saved this one for last because I consider this one of the most fascinating choices that the translation committee made, and that is regarding the word Elohim. As I said earlier, when Elohim is combined with the divine name, then you capitalize one or the other to let them know you're referring to divinity. But when Elohim is used by itself, it can be translated as God or gods. And this rendering here, in the 2016, it says they sacrificed to demons that were no gods, to gods they had never known. Now, because I hold the Deuteronomy 32:18 worldview, when it says that God distributed the inheritance of the nations according to the number of sons of Israel, I believe the Dead Sea Scroll fragment and the Septuagint actually have the original rendering here. And God divided the inheritance of the nations according to the number of the sons of God. So that means I'm going to hold that sons of God worldview, which really makes this rendering super interesting. Because in the update, it says they sacrificed to demons that were not God, capital G, to gods they had never known. So while this update isn't significant, it's saying they were sacrificing to demons who were no gods, but instead they sacrificed to demons that were not God, showing us clear delineation that when you make sacrifices to either God or demons. And Paul affirms that in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 in regards to communion. He actually alludes to this verse, and he says that when they sacrifice at the altar, they are sacrificing ultimately at the altar of demons and not God. I am no Hebrew scholar. I don't know the original languages fluently. I'm dependent on dictionaries and scholars, but this, in my opinion, is the absolute most fascinating update in this entire thing, because it really shows the distinction between that word Elohim, which is used back to back here, one referencing to God himself and the other referencing to God's lowercase g. So whenever Elohim is being used, context tells us whether or not this is talking about God, the one true God, or these false gods. Fascinating. So there you have it. Those are the updates to the 2025 ESV. 68 total words. Not a whole lot, but a few of them are pretty important. I know some are going to say this is a money grab. I am not in the heart and minds of the ESV Translation Committee. I don't know what their motives are, but some of this back and forth stuff with some of the verses really seems unnecessary to me. I find textual updates completely frustrating. This text has been updated 5 times since 2001. That is 24 years, and we've already got 5 editions of the ESV. To me, that is absolute overkill, and it seems to just be happening over and over with multiple translations. Even the CSB just recently had an update, and it's just far too much in my mind. That is why I love the stability of the New King James Bible that has not been updated since 1984. And that's the translation of choice for me. And that's the one I'm going to stick with because I love a stable text. God bless you. Keep calm. Jesus on.